this is the 6-3 homework video. We always start by putting our name on the top. All right, so you need to do everything except for letter M on the back. No M. All right, so if we look at this, use the grid below to complete the following tasks. Construct a y-axis that passes through the points Y and Z. So if you have a straight edge available, that would be fantastic. Even just a simple piece of paper, like I've got an index card here, will work. If not, try your best to be as neat as possible. So remember, our y-axis is vertical. That means it's going to go up and down. So I'm going to use my straight edge here, and we are going to connect Y and Z. And it happens to go through point W. Make sure you put those arrows on the end. All right, so A is done. Construct a perpendicular x-axis. So that means it's going to hit at a right angle. This needs to be a little bit taller. Can we see the little thing now? Let's try this again. Oh. There we go. Okay, so it's going to hit at a right angle, and it's going to go through Z and X. So now I'm going to connect Z and X going the other way. Okay, make sure you draw your arrows. And I always like to label X, and here's my Y. All right, so point B is done. Label origin as 0. Remember, our 0 is down here. 0, 0. All right, the y-coordinate of W is 2 3/5. So this right here is worth 2 3/5. So what I can tell from that is we are counting by fifths on this graph. All right, label the whole numbers along the y-axis. So if this is 3/5, this would be 2/5, this would be 1/5, and this would be 0/5. So right here would be 2. All right, so 4/5, 3/5, 2/5, 1/5, 0/5, right here would be 1. And just to double check, 4/5, 3/5, 2/5, 1/5, 0/5. That brings us down to 0. And if we go up, here's 3, 4, 5/5. This would be our 3. 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5. We would be at 3 4/5 up at the top here. All right, so that's D. Now the x-coordinate V down here is 2 2/5. 2 2/5. So label the whole numbers. So this would be 1/5. This would be just straight up 2. 1 4/5. 1 3/5. 2/5. 1/5. Here's our just plain old 1. And we'll go the other way. Here's 2/5, 3/5, 4/5. Here's 5/5, 3 1/5, 3 2/5, 3 3/5. Oh my gosh, I can't speak. And 3 4/5 is our ending point. I know it says whole numbers, but I do like to label that last point just so I know where I'm at. All right, so I know you're going to have to do a little bit of flipping back and forth, but let's see what we got. Identify all of the points that have a y-coordinate of 1 3/5. So that means we would have some number for x, and then our y value would be 1 3/5. So it doesn't matter horizontally where we go. It doesn't matter this way. It just matters that when we go up to 1 3/5, so here's 1 1/5, 2/5, 3/5. This is what we care about right here. So I got point R, point M, and point Q. So R, M, and Q are our points on that line. Now identify all of the points that have an x-coordinate of 2 1/5. So that is saying it has to be at 2 1/5, but it can be at any height. So we have to, when we go over here, start at 2 1/5 So 2 1/5. But then it can be any height we want it to be. So we could have L, we could have M again, or O. So LMO. LMO. All right, letter C. Which point is 1 3/5 unit above the x-axis and 3 1/5 units to the right of the y-axis? So name that point and give its coordinate pair. So 1 3/5 above the x-axis. What that's actually telling us is that is our y value. And then this one is saying to the right, remember our x value is always going to be horizontal. So this one's going to be our x. They are trying to trick you right now. So let's write the coordinate first because I think that's helpful. So 3 1/5, comma, 1 3/5. And now, and honestly, it might be helpful to just write those so that you, on a little separate paper, some little piece of scrap paper, so that when you flip, you remember, because I know I forget. All right, so we're going to go across 3 1/5, so I'm over here. And then we're going to go up 1, so I'm up to 1, and then 3/5, so 1, 2, 3. Looks like Q is our point. Q. All right, which point is located 1 1/5 units from the y-axis? So that's saying this is an x value. Which point is located 1 1/5? So I go over to 1. Oof. Okay. Sorry. I go over to 1, and 1 1/5 would be right next to it. If I follow it up, the only point I see is K. So K is right here. Which point is located 2/5 units along the x-axis? Again, it's going to be an x value because it says the word along. From means it's going to be the opposite. Along means it's going to be the same one that it says. So 2/5, let's see. So 2/5. All right, so 2/5, hold on. Which point is 2/5 along the x-axis? So 1/5, 2/5. Again, here we go. R would be our point. All right, give the coordinate pair for each of the following points. All right, so if I look at T, where is T? First thing is locating it, right? So T, here it is. I'm going to go across until I get there. And right here is where my T hits. So that's 2 2/5. So 2 3/5 would be the first one. 2 3/5, comma. Now how far up is it? And it's 1 after this one, so 2 4/5. All right, point U, I go across 1, 2, 3, so 3/5, and 1, 2, 3/5. 3/5, 3/5. 3/5, 3/5. And I'm sorry they did not give you a whole lot of room to write on this guy. All right, for S, it looks like if we go all the way across to 1, and then we go up 1/5, 2/5. So our point would be 1, 2/5. And the last one is K. So if we go across 1 1/5 here, it looks like I already drew a line. So 1 1/5, and then I go all the way up and over, which would be 3 1/5, 2/5. So 1 1/5, 3 2/5. 1 1/5, 3 2/5. All right, so it's about to stop. You can watch the second video for the second half of this.